types of fixed income securities or types of bonds. Let us now understand different kinds of bonds which are there in practice issued by different banks, governments, corporates, and things like that. Now, please remember there can be n number of types of bonds, and why there can be n number of types of bonds, and that is because a bond is what? Bond is nothing, it's a contract. It's a contract between the issuer and the subscribers. So depending on the needs and the requirements of the subscriber and the issuer, they can always structure a bond which is different from typically issued bonds, and that is why always remember that there is no fixed type of bonds which can be there at any given point in time. One can always innovate and come out with a new kind of bond for serving their purpose. Having said that, there are certain types of bonds which are already there in practice, and let us understand them as to which are these bonds which are already being issued in the debt market or in the bond market or in the market of fixed income securities. So number one is floating rate bond, and you can obviously understand floating rate bond would mean that on this bond the rate of interest is floating, the coupon rate is floating. Number two, fixed rate bond. Now, what is the meaning of fixed rate bond? The meaning of fixed rate bond will be that in respect of this bond, the coupon rate is fixed. Number three, zero coupon or deep discount bond. So, what is a zero coupon bond or deep discount bond? They are same. Please remember, deep discount bond or zero coupon bond refer to the same type of bond, and that means what? That means in respect of these bonds there is no fixed coupon rate. That means the holder of these bonds does not get any periodical cash flow, and these bonds are issued at a discount, and they're issued at a deep discount, and that is why they are referred as deep discount bond. The issue price and the face value of the bond, the difference between the issue price and the face value, that becomes a return of the deep discount bond holder. Number four, bonds can be convertible or bonds can be non-convertible. So what is the meaning of convertible bond? A convertible bond is one which upon expiry of a prefixed period will get converted into equity shares as per the contract or the agreement that would have been signed between the issuer and the subscriber, and that is your convertible bond. So convertible bonds are the ones that get converted into equity. And then you have non-convertible bonds. Of course, as the name suggests, these are non-convertible bonds. That means they don't get converted into equity. They remain only a bond, and on the expiry they are redeemed by the issuer. Number five, callable and putable bonds. So what is the meaning of callable bonds or putable bonds? It simply means a callable bond is one where the bond has been issued with an embedded option, and that is the call option. So जब कोई कंपनी, जब कोई issuer bond issue करता है with a call option, it is known as callable bond. And that means what? That means the issuer of this bond, upon expiry of a prefixed period, the issuer can call these bonds back, redeem them, and get free of the liability of the interest, and so also of the principal. That is your callable bond. And then you have a putable bond. Putable bond, I'm sure you would have automatically understood. Putable bonds are the ones where the bonds are issued with a put option, and put option would mean that the holder of the bond will have a right to offer to surrender these bonds for redemption upon the expiry of a prefixed period, and that is your putable bond. Then remember, it is not that you can only have a callable bond or you can have only a putable bond. You can always have a bond which is callable as well as which is putable also. That means you can have a bond which has got both the options, call options as well as the put options. And please remember, all these bonds which are issued with the options, call option or put option, are also referred as embedded bonds. Embedded bonds. नंबर 7, perpetual bonds. Perpetual bonds का मतलब क्या है? These are the bonds which are issued with no maturity period. So these are the bonds which are issued for perpetuity. That means there is no fixed expiry date of these bonds, and that is why they are referred as the perpetuity bond. Number 8, there are bonds which are known as tier bond. TEAR bond. Tier bond. Tier bond का मतलब क्या है? टीयर बॉन्ड का मतलब है 10-year bond. So 10-year bond, now this is the term, tier bond is a term which is used more in the America, in the US, and tier bond is a term which is referred for those bonds whose tenure is of 10 year. So 10 year को short करके कर दिया tier bond, उसको short करके कर दिया tier bond. And then you have
perpetual bond को और एक बार बोलिए.
and then you have number 9, which is gilt aged security. Now what is the meaning of gilt aged security? The meaning of gilt aged security is all the bonds which are issued by government are referred as gilt aged securities. And please understand why these bonds which are issued by the government securities are referred as gilt aged securities, because these are the most, since they are guaranteed by the government of India or by the government of the respective country, there is no risk involved in case of these securities, and that is why they are called as gilt aged security. यानी कि तलवार की धार के जैसा पहना होता है, that is how it is called as gilt aged security. Number 11 is embedded security or bond or option. So I have already mentioned to you, whenever there is a bond issued with an option, call option or put option or both the options, that bond is referred as embedded bond. Number 12, you have the bonds which are tax free, and tax free bonds are obviously would mean that on these the investment in these bonds, for the investment in these bonds, the investor will get tax exemption, and that is how they are referred as tax free bonds. Typically tax free bonds will be issued by the government of India undertakings, more so for the purpose of implementing infrastructure projects, and that is where they would like to offer this advantage of tax to the subscriber so as to mop up more capital. But remember, in case of tax-free bonds, typically there will be a minimum lock-in period. That means the holder of the bond will not be able to freely transfer these bonds until expiry of the lock-in period. Number 13, junk bonds. So what are the junk bonds? Now junk bonds are also known as speculative bonds, or they are also known as non-investment grade bond. So junk bonds का मतलब क्या है? Junk bonds का मतलब है कि ये जो bonds हैं इनकी सिक्योरिटी का कोई भरोसा नहीं है, और इनकी जो इशू कर रहा है उसकी फाइनेंशियल पोजीशन का कोई भरोसा नहीं है, and that is why they are called as junk bond or speculative bond or non-investment grade bond. Junk bond, of course, since there is a huge risk in case of junk bond, they will offer higher coupon rate, and that is what is your junk bond. And I'm sure a question may come to your mind as to why should somebody subscribe for a junk bond. Please remember, in the market you have all kinds of players, and you have players who have to formulate portfolios, and when they have to formulate portfolios, they have to ensure that all kinds of investment are part of that portfolio, and that is where they may also include junk bond as part of their portfolio, because it is not that the junk bond will always be a failure. It's not that the junk bond will always default. The possibility of default in case of junk bond is higher, and it's not the certainty, it is only uncertainty इन रिस्पेक्ट ऑफ जंक बॉन्ड. अगर किसी को मालूम है कि जंक बॉन्ड पैसा वापस करेगा नहीं, इंटरेस्ट भरेगा नहीं, तो फिर कोई उसमें पैसा लगाने वाला नहीं है, एंड दैट इज योर जंक बॉन्ड. नंबर 14 इज इनकम बॉन्ड. इनकम बॉन्ड का मतलब क्या है? इनकम बॉन्ड का मतलब ये है कि इनकम बॉन्ड का इश्यूअर डज नॉट गिव यू गारंटी ऑफ पेइंग any coupon or any interest from time to time. It undertakes to pay the interest only in case if the issuer is generating some income from its operations, and that's why it is known as income bond. So please remember, income bond का मतलब ये नहीं है कि इस बॉन्ड के ऊपर आपको डेफिनेट इनकम मिलेगा ही मिलेगा. इनकम बॉन्ड का मतलब ये है कि अगर इश्यूअर के पास में इनकम है तो वो सब्सक्राइबर को इंटरेस्ट पे करेगा, और अगर इश्यूअर के पास में इनकम नहीं है तो ऑफ कोर्स वो सब्सक्राइबर को इंटरेस्ट पे नहीं करेगा. लेकिन आप समझ सकते हैं कि इन केस ऑफ इनकम बॉन्ड ऑल्सो द कूपन रेट इज गोइंग टू बी हायर देन द नॉर्मल कूपन रेट, बिकॉज द सब्सक्राइबर इज टेकिंग अ रिस्क of not receiving the income in case if the issuer does not have any income. Number 15 is subordinated bonds. And subordinated bonds का मतलब क्या है? These are the bonds which are having a security which is subordinate to another series of bond which is having a prime security, and that is your subordinated bonds. Number 16, bearer bonds. So bearer bonds are the bonds which are transferable, which are negotiable by mere transfer. So merely by transferring or handing over the bond to somebody, you can transfer these bonds, and that's how they are known as bearer bonds. Yankee bonds. So remember, Yankee bond has got nothing to do with China. Yankee bond का मतलब ये है कि whenever a company from outside US goes and issues their bond in American market, those bonds are known as Yankee bond, and of course these bonds will need to be denominated in the US dollar. So bonds issued by an overseas company in American market, dominating those bonds in dollar currency are referred as Yankee bonds. Yankee bonds. 18 is inflation linked bonds, and I'm sure you can understand inflation linked bonds are the bonds which have a floating rate of interest. And why it has got a floating rate of interest? Because the rate of interest is linked with inflation. So if the inflation is increasing, then the applicable rate of interest in respect of these bonds will also increase. If the inflation rate is going down, then the rate of interest applicable in respect of these bonds will also go down, and that is how they are known as inflation linked bonds. Asset-backed securities. Now, what are the asset-backed securities? I am sure you understand something which is known as securitization. So, what is securitization? All these home loan companies, credit card companies, personal loan companies, they keep on lending money. They keep on lending personal loan, they keep on lending car loan, they keep on lending home loan. So what these companies which are into the lending for homes, lending for cars, now over a period they have a sizable amount of receivables with them, right? And they have a sizable amount of receivables with them, and they further want funds for further lending. So what they do, they securitize these receivables and give it to someone or sell it to someone, and the buyer of these receivables, that means when you make a product of all the receivables put together, it is known as securitization. It is known as securitization. So somebody will buy all the receivables from ICICI or from SDFC or from Kotak Bank, and they will give money to Kotak or ICICI or to SDFC, and as a result of that, Kotak or SDFC or ICICI will have more money for onward lending. So the only difference is when the Kotak will lend to the home buyers, they will loan it at the rate of 10%. But when they securitize it and give it to another intermediary, it will be perhaps at the rate of 8% or something like that. So this is known as and this company which has bought these receivables, what it will do, it will issue it will issue PTC, pass through certificates, and those pass through certificates are referred. Against those pass through certificates, the company in the background, or which is known as SPV, special purpose vehicle, that special purpose vehicle will issue PTCs or pass through certificates, and against those PTCs will get funds from others and use those funds for giving it to SDFC or Kotak Bank or ICICI. And all these assets are referred as, all these securities which are issued, PTCs, are known as asset-backed securities. And finally, number 20, government or sovereign bonds. So the bonds which are issued by the national government of a country, those bonds are known as national bonds or sovereign bonds. Need I mention? And these bonds, national government bonds or the sovereign bonds, are also referred as gilt as the security, because these bonds are guaranteed for the repayment and for the interest payment by the government of the country, and that's why they have no risk of any kind, and that's the reason why they are called as gilt-edged security. So friends, these are the 20 type of bonds that I could think of to share with you, and I'm sure all of you should also do some more research and find out if there is any other type of bonds which are available in the market and which can be added to this list of 20 bonds that we have just discussed.